start off by talking about your 84-year friendship with Eva Alvena's our host, and your other friend like George Draculas, and all growing up together in Annapolis. How was it that you became so friendly with all the Greek girls when you were not of Greek heritage?
I had no idea. I think they liked me because I was small and a blonde. I don't know. But we were friends from the get-go, really.
When did you first meet Eva?
When I went to first grade. 6 years old.
And then you guys went
Green
all...
Street Elementary.
Green, okay. And who were some of the other girls that were there?
Except, excuse me, I have to back up because they tossed me out of St. Mary's because I went there first for a very short time.
Okay.
And then we couldn't ride the buses to get in from Harness Creek, so we had to transfer. So it was not the first day, anyway.
Okay.
But we were friends from the beginning.
Yeah, and you told me about some people like Ethel Fotis was in your class, is that right? Or
No, I don't know.
Nellis?
Well, she might have been. Helen Snyder was in our class.
Okay.
Kitty Brunellis, I believe, was in our class. There were a lot of Greek girls and guys. I mean, I don't know, and Johnny Alvenas was behind us, I think 1 year, and
Okay.
we loved him very much. But you couldn't help but like the Greek people. They were very warm.
And actually, tell me, because obviously later on in life you married a wonderful man, Greek man, Johnny Christo. Tell us about growing up as a young girl in Annapolis and how you got involved in the restaurant business. I know you had told me you started working at Lebowitz or some places.
Yeah, well, growing up as a young girl, I did not know John. At that time, I didn't meet him until 1951.
Okay.
But my mother was an Annapolis, and her mother before her was an Annapolis.
The Williamses.
The Williams. No, the Jacobs. My mother was a Jacobs, Lillian Jacobs.
Okay.
Williams. My father came from St. Mary's County, but we were just Annapolitans from the beginning, a long time. And St. Mary's, we belonged to that church forever in the beginning.
Okay.
But then I did work at Lebowitz on Main Street. That was my first job out of high school. 2 weeks after I graduated, I went to work there.
And was that a clothing store or something?
Yes, a very nice clothing store.
Upscale.
And Reuben Lebowitz and his wife Marcel, they were wonderful people too. Jewish people, and they were sponsored a lot of bids and things like that. They were also giving people.
Yeah.
So my growing up downtown Annapolis was very pleasant. I had nothing bad to say upon that.
How did you end up in the restaurant business?
Well, I worked across the street from where John had a small restaurant, he and his mother, called the New Grill. But before that, before I knew him, I think it was called Tom's Grill. That was his stepfather, Tom Christo. And one of my friends, Lillian Tamanio, who was married to Ernie Tamanio from the Red Coach Inn downtown.
Wow.
And he also played in the band at the Naval Academy before that. Well, they convinced me to meet up, go over to the New Girl and eat, which I didn't do for a long time because I was the shy one, not Eva. I have to say that. And I was afraid of my own shadow, I think. But anyway, to make a shorter story out of it, I did one day go over and Lillian took me over and we ate there. And I got to tell you, from the very first moment I saw, this is going to sound silly, but it's the truth. I really fell in love with the back of my husband's head. He had the most beautiful black hair, the most beautiful. The shape of his head was unreal. Unreal. And I used to tell his mother all the time, you must have loved him dearly because you had to rub the heads to get him nice. It was beautiful. But anyway, that's funny, but it's the truth. And he used to come over and talk to me, but he always would say what I thought was silly things. Like he loved my eyes, he loved, this is beautiful, that's beautiful. I used to giggle and laugh. It tickled me because I was a young person.
Yeah.
And he said, you won't always laugh. And he was right. I think we were meant for each other.
Absolutely, no question about that.
Yes.
Tell us about Fred's Restaurant, which became an institution in Annapolis, and how it was the home for the politicians and the Greek community. It seemed all to gather at Fred's. That was the place.
Yes.
Well, it's the truth. Well, there were only about 15 restaurants in all of Anne Arundel County. Not all of Anne Arundel County, but close to Annapolis at that time. And we started out it was tough. We were just starting with no money or anything. And he worked very hard. John was a great restaurateur, in my opinion. I'm bragging on him, he was. But anyway, we would work hard, and I kept my job. It wasn't with Lavovitz at that point, because Lavovitz had gone out of business, and they sold to the Lane Shop. I stayed there a while, but from there, I managed Montgomery Ward's mail orders department in Thunderwood. And so I kept working there, and we did work hard there, but it was worth it. The restaurant business was rewarding in many ways. Mostly the people. Loved the people.
Yeah.
Just loved the people. But anyway, he kept wanting to upgrade, of course. And we did many times, and his sister-in-law, Helen Desi's, would help us with all the remodeling, the interior design. She was great. She was really great in what she did. And it was a nice family. Everybody worked together, John's family. Stella came with us. She was the breeder, the hostess. And it was just a family project. But
Yeah.
anyway, when John was starting, he was 40 at this point, because we started in December of 1960. That's when we opened Fred's. And that day we had one of the biggest snow blizzards I can ever remember. And he kept saying to me, we're going to open. I said, there isn't going to be anybody there, John. But bless his heart, I finally said I would drive, because he didn't like to drive, but I drove. And we got there, believe me, and there was nobody there but us. And we just stayed and looked at outside these great big pane glass windows, huge. Nothing out there but field and snow. But that was all right. That was our first day.
Yeah, and it became an institution in Annapolis, and I remember
Right.
you told me you would sit there and make the crab cakes. As short as you were, you would go out.
In the back, I did prepping. I could not cook. I knew nothing about restaurant. And when my husband asked me to quit my job, I was always retail from 16 years. And I said, I cried my heart out because I didn't want it. Not that I didn't love him in the business, but I didn't know the restaurant. Other than the bookkeeping part, I did those things in the morning. I would go there first. We would make lunch menus. I would do the deposit, take the inventories, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And one of the things I know my sister Annie always tells us, she says, all these the men that own these restaurants, their wives were right next to them and helping them with the paperwork, the business work, the greeters,
Right.
and they so
I was
women
happy
were
to be behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's it.
It didn't bother me.
And there's a great story there about all the women that worked with their husbands.
You're true. Most of the women I knew, the Greek women, were behind the scenes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when we had a grand opening, when we finally had a grand opening there, John put me in the kitchen. I didn't know from anything, but they made me roll pizza dough. We made our own dough. They made the dough, but I'm rolling. But I could not use my arms. I cried so much that night. My mother had to help me get. We didn't get married for 10 years. We opened when I met him was 51.
Right.
We got married in 62. But my mom, she had to help me get undressed because my arms hurt so bad.
Yeah.
We
roll
sold,
with
he
the
was
crab
giving
cakes.
the food away that
Yeah,
night,
yeah.
Pizza after pizza after pizza.
Tell me a little bit about John's service and Nick Fotis' service and Harry Maggio. I know you had told me that, and how you all handled it back on the home front.
Well, they were all in high school.
Okay, so we're talking about John Christo,
John
Nick Fotis,
Christo,
Harry Maggio.
Joe Maggio.
Oh, Joe.
Now, Harry might have been out. I don't remember, but they all enlisted in World War II. They enlisted, and they all together, and they left school and enlisted. And John was in the Pacific He was a bombardier in the B-29, the B-29 over Japan.
That's
And he had many funny stories to tell about that, but you don't have all this time to listen.
And how about with Nick Fotis? Did he become in the Air Force also?
Yes, he went in the Air Force, but he was in the European end of it, you know.
And Harry Maggio.
And Harry Maggio was in too, and Harry really got injured, a pretty bad injury. And
he was there on D-Day, because he had a store in the Capitol.
That's right, it was
as
in the
was
Capitol.
Pete Pelagas, and we had a lot of other Greeks from here, and all non-Greeks, and they were all
Right.
very
Well,
close.
the
They all raced
Italians-
together.
Tony Pappas.
And Tony Pappas, right?
yes, right. And you know what? The Greek people, the Jewish people, and the Italians were all so close.
Yes.
Like John grew, his little grill was only 2 doors from the Rosa's restaurant, the Maggio's restaurant.
They all grew up
Very,
together.
very close.
The Greek, the Italians, the
And-
Jewish, the Polish,
Right.
all of them right in
And they were
Annapolis.
very close.
Yeah, it was quite
They
an
protected
enclave.
each, you know, they were close. But I remember the one funny story you might want to know is that Joe Maggio had the only car out of the high school kids. And he used to pick up all those guys and drive them to school. They talked about that many times. And John and Nick Fotis were inseparable.
Yeah,
They-
good friends.
When I married John, they talked on the phone in the morning, and we only had one phone at that time. You didn't have phones in every room.
Oh my
And I'd
goodness.
say, John, would you please get off so I can check on my mother? So no way. They
No
had
way.
the best time, and it was wonderful to hear my husband laugh because they were having a good time.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were talking about because he was in another room, but they had a ball.
Well, you and John were leaders in helping the church community and very giving. I know that, and not just with the Greeks, but everybody. We want to thank you for this interview, and we're going to come back and do another one as well.
Good.
And then we're going to start with Eva.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.